Say what I think, regardless of the consequences. This was clearly a fixed game. Everyone saw it. If FIFA want Argentina to win, then why do you make us come play? I'm gonna say what I think, regardless of the consequences. This was clearly a fixed game. Everyone saw it. If FIFA want Argentina to win, then why do you make us come play?
With just 11 minutes remaining in Atlanta, it looked like Lionel Messi's World Cup dream had reached its final chapter. Argentina, the defending champions, were trailing Egypt to 2-0, and everything pointed toward a shocking elimination. Egypt, a nation that had never celebrated a single knockout victory on football's biggest stage, stood on the edge of creating history. Messi had already missed a penalty, struggled to influence the game, misplaced simple passes, lost possession under pressure, and fired efforts all off target. For long stretches, he appeared every bit of his 39 years. The man many consider the greatest footballer ever was preparing to leave the World Cup stage in heartbreaking fashion, only a day after Cristiano Ronaldo had suffered a similarly painful exit. It felt like football was closing the curtain on an unforgettable era. But in the space of just 13 astonishing minutes, everything changed. Argentina struck 3 times, producing the latest 2-goal comeback ever witnessed in World Cup history. Messi was overcome with emotion. Egypt's players collapsed in disbelief. Tempers exploded on the touchline. Controversial decisions sparked furious debates. And the match transformed into one of the most unforgettable contests the tournament has ever seen. To understand why this game became so emotional, you first have to understand what Egypt had already achieved. Football is deeply woven into the country's identity. Yet before this tournament, Egypt had played only a handful of World Cup matches across 3 appearances without ever tasting victory. Their first attempt to reach the World Cup dates back nearly a century, but circumstances prevented them from making that historic journey. This year, however, everything felt different. Under Hossam Hassan, Egypt arrived determined to rewrite their history. They claimed their first ever World Cup win against New Zealand before eliminating Australia in a dramatic penalty shootout. By the time they walked into Atlanta to face the reigning champions, they carried no fear and no expectations. They simply believed they belonged. From the opening whistle, Egypt refused to respect Argentina's reputation. Every challenge was fierce, every duel was contested, and every attack carried confidence. Instead of sitting back, they pressed aggressively and denied Messi the space he usually enjoys. Their fearless approach paid off inside the opening 15 minutes. A perfectly delivered corner found Yasser Ibrahim, who powered an unstoppable header beyond Emiliano Martinez. As the ball hit the back of the net, Egyptian players and coaches erupted with joy while thousands of supporters inside the stadium struggled to believe what they were witnessing. Argentina, a team rarely shaken on football's biggest stage, suddenly looked confused and uncomfortable. Only a few minutes later, Argentina received the perfect opportunity to respond. Nicolas Tagliafico was brought down inside the penalty area, leaving the referee with little hesitation before pointing to the spot. The responsibility naturally fell to Messi. It was the ideal chance for the captain to silence the growing pressure and pull his team back into the contest. Instead, the unimaginable happened. His penalty lacked power and placement, allowing Egyptian goalkeeper Mostafa Shobier to dive brilliantly and keep it out. The save stunned the stadium and added another painful chapter to Messi's night, making him the first player ever to miss 2 penalties during the same World Cup tournament. For a player whose career has been filled with extraordinary achievements, it was a statistic he would never have wanted attached to his name. That save only strengthened Egypt's belief. Shobier grew in confidence with every passing minute, producing one outstanding stop after another. He denied Alexis Mac Allister from close range, watched Messi's curling free kick strike the outside of the post, and somehow reacted quickly enough to stop Julian Alvarez from point-blank range. Argentina continued creating chances, but every opportunity seemed to end with Shobier standing tall between the posts. His performance wasn't simply inspired, it carried a remarkable family legacy. His father, Ahmed Shobier, represented Egypt as goalkeeper during the 1990 World Cup and became famous for his memorable performances on the international stage. Decades later, his son was now frustrating the defending world champions in front of millions of viewers around the globe. By halftime, Argentina walked toward the dressing room trailing, frustrated, and searching desperately for answers. Egypt had not relied on luck. Their organization, discipline, and relentless intensity had completely disrupted the champions' rhythm. Confidence was flowing through every Egyptian player, while uncertainty continued to grow inside the Argentine camp. Yet despite everything that had happened during the opening 45 minutes, the most dramatic moments of the night were still waiting to unfold. The second half somehow raised the intensity even further. Only a few minutes after the restart, Egypt launched another dangerous attack down the left flank. A perfectly weighted pass split Argentina's defense, finding Zizou in space. The forward kept his composure and calmly finished past Emiliano Martinez, sending the Egyptian supporters into absolute ecstasy. At 2-0, the impossible suddenly felt real. Egypt were moments away from booking a historic place in the quarterfinals. While the defending champions appeared completely overwhelmed, but before the celebrations could truly begin, VAR stepped into the spotlight. Officials reviewed an incident that had occurred more than half a minute before the goal was scored. The replay showed a slight shirt pull and minimal contact during the build-up, and after a lengthy review, the goal was ruled out. The decision immediately sparked outrage. Egyptian players surrounded the referee, unable to understand how such a minor challenge had erased one of the biggest goals in their nation's football history. The frustration was made even greater because throughout the tournament, referees had largely allowed physical contact to continue without interruption. Suddenly, the standard seemed to change at the most important moment of Egypt's campaign. Whether the decision was technically correct or not, consistency became the real talking point. FIFA had encouraged referees to let the game flow, allowing normal physical battles instead of stopping play for every small foul. Fans and analysts had praised that approach throughout the competition. Yet this review appeared to contradict everything teams had experienced in previous matches. Egypt believed they were being judged by a completely different standard, and that feeling would only grow stronger as the night continued. Remarkably, the controversy failed to break Egypt's spirit. Just 8 minutes later, they produced another brilliant attack. Hassan burst down the left side, leaving Nahuel Molina struggling to keep up before delivering a precise cut back into the penalty area. Zizou timed his run perfectly and buried the finish beyond Martinez. This time there was no lengthy review, no interruption, and no debate. The goals stood. Egypt finally had the 2-goal advantage they had earned, and Atlanta Stadium fell into stunned silence. The defending world champions were now only 11 minutes away from one of the greatest upsets in World Cup history. Argentina desperately needed inspiration, and it finally arrived through a tactical adjustment. Lionel Scaloni introduced Lautaro Martinez, reshaping the attack and allowing Messi to drift toward the right wing instead of remaining trapped in central areas. Throughout the match, Egypt had surrounded him with multiple defenders every time he touched the ball, leaving almost no room to operate out wide. However, Messi finally found the space he had been searching for all evening. The change produced immediate results. In the 79th minute, Messi floated a superb cross into the penalty area, where Christian Romero rose above everyone else and powered a header beyond Mostafa Shobir. The score became 2-1, and suddenly the momentum shifted completely. Argentina's belief returned in an instant, while Egypt began to feel the pressure of protecting their historic lead. Only moments later, Messi reminded everyone why he remains one of football's greatest talents. Picking up possession near the right touchline, he danced through a crowd of defenders with a balance and control that had defined his legendary career. Although the move didn't produce a goal, it energized Argentina and forced Egypt deeper into their own half. The pressure continued building with every passing minute. Then came the equalizer. Egypt struggled to clear a loose ball inside their own penalty area, and it fell perfectly for Messi just inside the box. Without hesitation, he struck a flawless half-volley that exploded toward goal. Shobir managed to get both hands to the shot, but even his incredible performance couldn't stop this one. The ball crashed into the roof of the net, and Argentina had erased a 2-goal deficit. In only a few minutes, the entire atmosphere inside the stadium had transformed. What had looked like an unforgettable Egyptian triumph had suddenly become a completely different contest, with both teams now believing the next goal would decide everything. With the score locked at 2-2, the match entered stoppage time carrying an almost unbearable level of tension. Both teams knew there would likely be only one more clear opportunity. Egypt pushed forward, determined to reclaim the lead before extra time, while Argentina sensed that the momentum had completely shifted in their favor. Every challenge, every pass, and every decision now carried enormous weight. Only a couple of minutes into added time, Egypt launched one final attack. Mohamed Salah drove into the penalty area and went to ground under pressure, immediately appealing for a foul. Egyptian players surrounded the referee, convinced they should have been awarded a penalty. However, play continued without a whistle, and within seconds Argentina turned defense into attack. The transition was lightning fast. Lautaro Martinez delivered an inviting cross into the box, where Enzo Fernandez timed his run perfectly and powered a header into the net. In the blink of an eye, Argentina had completed an astonishing comeback, taking a 3-2 lead just moments before the final whistle. For Egypt, the ending was devastating. The same attack that began with hopeful penalty appeals had ended with the ball in their own net. Their players stood frozen in disbelief, struggling to process how a dream that had seemed so close had disappeared in only a matter of minutes. The emotional swing was almost impossible to comprehend. The debate surrounding the officiating intensified immediately after the goal. Egyptian players and coaches argued that the contact on Salah should have been reviewed by VAR, especially considering the earlier intervention that had disallowed their own goal. From their perspective, two similar incidents had received completely different treatment. Officials, however, viewed the situations differently, believing the challenge on Salah did not meet the threshold required for a penalty review. That explanation did little to calm Egyptian frustration, and discussions about consistency quickly became one of the biggest talking points after the match. When the final whistle sounded, emotions spilled over. Players from both teams celebrating and argued at the same time, while members of the coaching staffs became involved in heated exchanges near the touchline. Messi approached Egypt's bench, where words were exchanged with head coach Hassan Hassan. Although no official explanation was ever given regarding what was said, the confrontation quickly attracted players, staff members, and security personnel. The situation escalated within seconds, forcing officials to separate those involved before things became even more serious. One Egyptian staff member was eventually shown a red card after aggressively confronting members of the Argentine team. In the post-match interviews, Hassan Hassan didn't hide his disappointment. He insisted his players had been treated unfairly and questioned several key officiating decisions that shaped the outcome of the game. Many Egyptian supporters echo those concerns, believing their historic achievement had slipped away because of inconsistent refereeing rather than purely footballing reasons. FIFA, however, offered no detailed public response beyond the decisions already made during the match. At the same time, Argentina deserve enormous credit for refusing to surrender. No official decision scored their goals. Cristian Romero still had to win his header. Messi still had to produce a moment of brilliance under immense pressure. Enzo Fernandez still had to arrive at exactly the right place at exactly the right time to complete the comeback. The champions showed the mentality that has defined successful teams throughout football history. They continued fighting until the very last second. That is why this match remains so fascinating. Two ideas can exist at the same time. Egypt can feel disappointed by the inconsistency of certain decisions, while Argentina can still be fully deserving of their remarkable comeback. The drama wasn't created by a single moment, but by the combination of extraordinary football, controversial officiating, incredible goalkeeping, tactical adjustments, and one unforgettable final act. At the center of it all stood Lionel Messi. For much of the night, he looked frustrated, exhausted, and on the verge of suffering one of the most painful defeats of his career. He had missed a penalty, struggled to influence the match, and watched his team fall to goals behind. Yet when Argentina needed him most, he responded with leadership, creativity, and a world-class finish that completely changed the direction of the game. By the final whistle, the same player who had looked heartbroken less than 15 minutes earlier was being lifted into the air by his teammates, celebrating another unforgettable chapter in his legendary career. Argentina advanced to the quarterfinals with renewed belief, continuing their pursuit of back-to-back World Cup titles. Egypt, meanwhile, left the tournament with pride in their performance, but also with painful questions that may never receive satisfying answers. They had pushed the defending champions to the absolute limit, produced one of the finest performances in their football history, and came within 11 minutes of one of the greatest upsets the World Cup has ever witnessed. Perhaps that's why this match will be remembered for years to come. It wasn't simply about a comeback or a controversial decision. It was about football's ability to produce joy and heartbreak in the very same moment. One nation celebrated a miraculous escape, another was left wondering what might have been. And long after the final whistle, one question continues to divide football fans around the world. Was this the greatest World Cup comeback of the modern era, or one of the tournament's most painful missed opportunities?